All right, a warm welcome back to The Verdict here on Channels Television. We'll go, as promised, to our Abuja studios, where Professor Tony Iradia, former Director General of the Nigerian Television Authority, is in our Abuja studios. First, Prof, we need to apologize for not coming straight back to you after the break as promised. That was an oversight on our part here in the Lagos studios. And then secondly, of course, we have received the information that, in fact, you are a professor. That is information that had just been passed on to us. So apologies on both counts. Now, as I said, I was going to come to you to ask the question about the principal topic. Now, you've talked about the terms of education. Of course, that is linked to participation. But we've got only 3 days now to this election. Is there anything that can be done to improve the level of voter participation at this time?
Well, thank you very much, Ladi. Well, thank you very much, Ladi. I think that at this point in time, we should focus on trying to attack voter apathy, trying to ensure that we give out public enlightenment programs and stories that will encourage people to go and vote. Should not be the time that the two major parties will continue to adopt the debate approach of where one says yes, the other must say no, and vice versa. This is a time when they have already told us all that they wanted to tell us before the suspension. Now that there's suspension, now that there's some level of disbelief, some level of apathy, we need to revamp the beliefs of people by focusing essentially on that. And that's why I was talking about how good it is that some of the airlines have slashed the fares to encourage people to travel again, because there are people who will not want to do so on account of the resources. That's a good point. Then the parties themselves must now begin to assist INEC to tell voters that everything has been restored. Now the INEC chairman says he will brief the nation every day on the latest. All these are confidence-building strategies, and that is what the parties should emphasize. It is not the time for the parties to pick up one item and begin to argue over it, whether somebody should be shot if he carries ballot box and so on and so forth. I'm not saying those things are good, but this is not the time to begin to go into all those divisive issues. Because if you go into all of that, it will be clear that we are actually simplistic. Because if you shoot at somebody who is carrying a ballot box, I wonder what you are going to do to those who sit down in the comfort room of the collation centers and change the figures. They don't carry any box. They just change the figures where they are sitting. Are those not greater, saboteurs of the system? So I don't think we should focus on all of those. We should focus on getting Nigerians to be interested, getting Nigerians not to lose interest in the game. I think if we can do that, we will have given a kind of leap to the system, and then we can go back to where we are. The parties have campaigned enough, and I think we have seen enough of that. Let us now go back to the public.
Prof, yes, you said the parties have campaigned enough, but they will still campaign a bit more, looking forward to the 9th of March. I know it's late now, but do you think PVC collection should have continued?
Actually, I think so. I think that we don't really need. There's so much bureaucracy in this PVC thing. We don't need all of that. Even those who have temporary cards that were issued officially by the Electoral Commission should have been allowed to vote, because the important thing really is to get everybody to vote. And if the information in the cards are the same and they are all secured, because a lot of people were not able to collect these cards, not only because of the last-minute attitude of Nigerians that people have been attributing to that problem, but because of the bureaucracy. You need to go to where these cards are collected. One reason or the other, you are sent from one table to the other, and you may never get it. So a lot of people have really tried to get it, but they couldn't get it. I think we need to reduce the level of bureaucracy in our electoral process. And all of this is because we have refused to use technology. If only we had used technology, all of this will go. In fact, all the sensitive materials we are talking about will no longer be sensitive. We need a system that will make a voter know that if he impersonates or he tries to print another person's card, the machine will itself invalidate it. If we do that kind of thing, which is in line with global realities, we'll be moving forward. But we are still doing analog elections where we carry 80,000 policemen and some 15,000 soldiers in one corner. You know, these people are also human beings. They have their biases, and they cannot actually assist in ensuring that the election is not free and fair. But we have passed that stage. The nation should have gone beyond. In Kenya and other countries, they are doing this already. I don't see why we are still doing what we're doing now. I was in the Electoral Commission in 1993. I was actually spokesman of the Electoral Commission that conducted the June 12, 1993 election. At the point at which that election was about to end, our chairman, Professor Humphrey Nwosu, a man of ideas, had started thinking of how to introduce technology. So if 26 years after Professor Nwosu has left the system, we have still not been able to use technology to a point in which we don't need to knock down the entire nation for election purposes. We're not just even fair to those who are not allowed to vote. We have 84 million voters according to INEC. That means we have only half of Nigerians that can vote. And yet we lock down everybody, including those that are legally excluded from voting, and those who have no business voting, and those who are even underage. We lock everybody inside the house. You can't move from one place to the other. So we need to change our system so that people can have confidence in what we're doing. The way it is now, the political class has something to gain in making sure that we do not use technology. We should discourage them from doing that. They are the ones causing it. They are the ones causing all the problems we are having today. Everybody is talking about logistics. Nobody is talking about INEC offices that have been burnt down. Nobody is talking about political parties that even as at the point at which I'm talking, they have not been able to identify who their candidates are. How does the Electoral Commission accommodate all of that and be able to be confident in what it is doing and carry on successfully? I think we need to do a rethink so that our elections can be easy and simple and encouraging. All this one that we are pleading with everybody is because of the hardness of the process.
Thank you very much, Prof. Returning to Lagos here, where Gt. Ogriye is, you heard Prof. But some of what he said, obviously, is not for this Saturday. There are discussions that will obviously continue well after this Saturday and so on. But if we narrow it down to this Saturday and how to get more and more people, Prof. Of course, talked about heading for the rural areas. This whole idea about using electronic medium and so on doesn't affect most of those we expect to vote. In your own experience, how best can one do that when time is not on your side?
Well, there is no magical way to do it other than enlisting the support of the political parties, and I will explain, to engage dramatically in what I call get out the votes campaign. That's a shade different from engaging in political campaigning. In the United States of America, and this, commonplace now, thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of volunteers, young people, get out to knock on doors, to talk about getting them to vote, to encourage voters to go and cast the ballot. Get out the vote campaigns. Political parties engage in this because they are the immediate beneficiaries of voting. Of course, the people benefit from, their civic duty of electing their leaders, but they are the immediate beneficiary. And so, being the immediate beneficiary, they are supposed to be supremely concerned about the number of the votes that they will tally at the end of the day. So, meaning that they have a stake in getting people to go and vote. And I'm saying that, in spite of the fact that the time that we have is short, they can engage in that rather than this saber rattling and brick bat thing that they are doing, fighting each other or one another and things like that. I think that that's a critical thing they can do between now and when it will be too late to engage in such effort.
A lot of the new entrants have started doing that, not without mentioning any names. Part of their strength, they say, is that they knock on doors and all that. But some people are looking at the culture of the people here, and whether, unlike in America, when somebody knocks on your door, you're welcoming and all that, whether that will really work here when you're a little bit more suspicious of who is actually knocking on my door?
No, it's not only about culture, it's also about our situation. Elsewhere, you'll be shocked that in spite of their security challenges, you don't see people living in prisons that they call compounds here. So before you even get to knock on people's door, you have walls and walls and walls.
And dogs.
And dogs and all that. So where are you going to get the dog you are going to knock on? Maybe you knock on gate. But I'm using, that term, to just suggest that we can try. I know that we have our challenges here, but we can try. And apart from that, people are challenged in all respect. Economically challenged, socially challenged, and all that. And so they may not even be in the mood to listen to you when you are knocking on their door, but we have to try, because it's all about doing this. Yes, INEC has a statutory duty to conduct perpetually. And Professor Heredia mentioned something like that this should not just be episodic. Election is coming, so engage in ad hoc voters' education and all that. It has to be perpetual and all that. INEC has a statutory duty to do that. But beyond INEC, that is doing it as a matter of statutory responsibility. Staff are being remunerated and all that. Civil society organizations are getting grants, and they are also, encouraged to do that because they will be paid remuneration honoraria, things like that. This has to move to the citizenry. And the political parties that exist do not exist only because they just want to win elections. They are also institutions of democracy in a way. And so if you have 91 political parties, the critical question remains, where are they present? How do they interface with potential electorates, with potential voters, mobilizing them, not just to support their partisan agenda, but to participate in the process? Because without that participation, every election cycle, a minority will still be electing
the people.
And then the majority will just be there, and then we'll be wondering what kind of democracy we're having. Even at 84 million, and we're not going to get to that. Maybe if we're lucky this year, we'll get to 50% participation. Even at 84 million, you still have a minority. If you discount underage persons who are not eligible to vote. So it's critical that the political parties, even if we have cultural impediments, if we have social impediments, security challenges and all that, to devise means and strategies. Because it's all about the people, to engage with the people, sensitize the people, move them to participate in the process. And I think that they can do that even in the next 2 days.
To successfully do that. It's okay.